DJ Felix for your awesome music. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our keynote speaker for today, Mr. Anthony Perez. Anthony began leaving his footprint in the banking industry in 2002, but his drive for excellence was cultivated years prior. He's a vice president and commercial banking relationship manager for the Bank of Tampa. He also serves as chairman for the City of Tampa Mayor's Hispanic Advisory Council. And his passion and genuine care and concern have been recognized by several media outlets, including an article written in La Gaceta newspaper about his family and passion for the community. His passion and hard work have also gained him the trust of Mayor Bob Buckhorn and the City of Tampa's Mayor's Hispanic Advisory Council, as this year they elected Anthony to serve as chairman of the council for his second term. Anthony holds a master's in business administration from the University of South Florida and serves on the USF Latino Advisory Scholarship Board. Last year, Anthony started a yearly scholarship in his grandmother's honor for Hispanic students who are the first in their family to attend college. Anthony also serves on the board of directors at the Judeo-Christian Clinic. And now, welcome Mr. Anthony Perez.
Good morning, bienvenidos. You know, it's always nice to hear those wonderful introductions and the titles that you pick up along the way and get associated with your name of vice president and chairman. Those are things that I'm certainly proud of. But two titles that I'm most proud of that you don't often hear in introductions are the title of husband and father. And so with that, I'd like to say hello to my wife and my mother-in-law who are celebrating their birthday with us today. Today is... They share a birthday and they're here, so thank you guys. I'd also like to say hello to two of my three children, Carter and Gwen. Thank you guys for being here. And last but certainly not least, my father-in-law for being here. So yes, this is a privilege to be your speaker today. It is truly an honor to share with you my family's story, ultimately my story of how we got from where we were to where we are today and all in between. So let me set this up for you just so that you know what to expect. Because I'm here like you to celebrate our young people and the awards that they're going to be receiving. So I'm going to take no more than 10 or 15 minutes of your time. And like I said, I'm going to share with you my family story. And then I'm going to close by hopefully imparting on you 2 or 3 little takeaways or words of wisdom, as they call them, that perhaps can add some inspiration to your life, because I know they've surely added some inspiration in my life. So with that, I have to tell you that I'm a first-generation American. I am the first person in my family that was born here, hence first-generation American, right? And so my family is from Cuba. And so for generations, the Garcia family was known for providing the city of Guantanamo milk. And so the story actually will begin my family story there. So it was a day just like today, any other morning, and it was very early in the morning. It was still dark, and my grandfather was walking out to the farm to see the animals and to collect the dairy. But today was a day like no other day, because today his life was about to change, and generations of the Perez Garcia family were going to change, and he didn't realize it, because as he approached the gates of the farm, there were 2 men standing there in military uniforms with rifles. And so my grandfather, who God rest his soul, he's not with us anymore, he told me, he said, "Tony, cuando lo vi casi me meé en los pantalones." So for those of you that speak Spanish, you know what that means, and those that don't, in English that translates to, when I saw them, I almost went pee-pee in my pants. But you can imagine the fear as my grandfather approached the gate, and the men told him that this was no longer his farm. Imagine, for generations, your family built this. And on this day, there's men with rifles that are telling you that this farm is no longer yours, and that you have one of 2 options. You can either stay and you can work on the farm for a minimal wage, or you're lucky because there's a plane that's leaving in just a few hours by the Catholic Church. And you can take your family with the clothes you have, your travel documents, and leave right now. And, you know, as I reflect on that, I think of what that moment must have been like to make such a big, life-changing decision that you didn't have time to plan for. See, now, if you're like me, you're wondering where the men with rifles came from. So I don't have a lot of time to give you the entire dissertation, but I can tell you that for generations, Cuba enjoyed the same freedoms that we enjoy here in the United States. As a matter of fact, we were one of the best trading partners that Cuba had. But there was a new philosophy, a new leadership that was coming in called communism. And it's not like today. It wasn't like today. This is the late 1960s. So it's not like today where there's social media and you know things before they even happen. They had heard of this Fidel Castro, and they had heard of this communist regime, but you didn't know that it was actually happening until you walked out to your farm and there were men with rifles that said, it's happening. It's happened, as a matter of fact. This is now ours. So my grandfather, I applaud him, and he tells me that the first thing he thought of was his family and the future of his family and all that could be if he stayed and all that could be if he left. And so he left. He chose to leave, and they got on this plane not knowing where it went. And if you ever hear people say that they left with nothing more than the clothes on their back, that's a true statement. They went back inside to get clothes, and the men said, no, we didn't say you could go back inside. We said either stay and work or go to the plane. So they left literally with the clothes on their back, their travel documents. That plane took them to Spain, where they lived for 3 years. And my mother shares these stories of sometimes for meals, they had ketchup packets and crackers and water with sugar. That's one way to lose weight, I guess. And we laugh, but it's certainly not funny. Those were meals that they had while living in a Catholic church in Spain until they were ultimately placed in the city of Chicago. And so if you're like me from the outside looking in, you say, oh my goodness, things have now gone from bad to worse. Because at least in Spain, they had the language. Right? They could communicate, they could get around. See, the United States in the early 70s isn't the United States as it is today. The menu wasn't in English and Spanish, and there wasn't a television, Spanish TVs, and signs that read Spanish. Today, we make an exceptional amount of accommodations for Hispanics, and we should never take that for granted, because there was a time where those accommodations simply didn't exist. And so if you're like me, you're looking at this and you're like, wow, things have gotten from bad to worse. Now they're in the United States. And they were placed there with nothing more than a few dollars in their pocket, temporary housing, and a few bus passes, and a prayer by the Catholic Church. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Good luck. But when I talked to my grandmother passed away this past January. She's the one that we started the scholarship for in her honor. When I asked her about what it was like, she said that those were the most glorious times of their life. And I couldn't believe it, because here I am thinking that the situation had just gone from bad to worse. She said, absolutely not. They were in the United States of America. This was the greatest country on earth. This was a country that they had heard about, that hard work was rewarded, and that you could change your circumstances. That honesty and integrity, those things paid dividends beyond belief. And so they were joyful. They celebrated because they knew that it was only temporary, the circumstances that they were at, that they were in this country and they were going to make it happen. So they took the few dollars that they had and they did it. They went to work immediately. They went to work and they had enough money to buy a car jack, to fix flat tires. And that's what they did. They took a box, they hand wrote, fixed flat tires, and they started fixing flat tires. I can fast forward the story for you 30 years to 2000, and at that time we had 11 distribution centers across the Midwest. Several hundreds of employees relied on my family for paychecks. We were rewarded for our hard work. We were living the American dream. We live, still to this day, I should say, the American dream. And that's what it didn't come without a ton of hard work and a ton of sacrifice. We were open 364 days a year. We closed one day for Christmas. I remember, my mom and my uncle holding my sister, my cousins, while answering phones, and it came at a lot of sacrifice and a ton of hard work. And so those are lessons that I grew up with every single day. As a matter of fact, when I was 9 years old, I'll share this story with you, and I share it today more than I ever have. I was 9 years old, and my uncle, after work, said, get in the car, I want to show you something. I said, Tío, ¿pa dónde vamos? Where are we going, Tío? He said, I want to show you something. And we drove downtown Chicago, And we sat on a corner of a busy intersection. And you can imagine the entire time I'm saying, Theo, what are we doing? And my uncle was a big man, the kind of guy that when he shook your hand, his whole hand just engulfed your hand. He was larger than life for me. And that day, he had tears in his eyes. And he said, Tony, he called me Tony. He said, Tony, look around. And that day he called them the beautiful people. There was suits, people like you and I, crossing the streets of Chicago. And he said, Mírame, now look at me. He said, do you know why I'm covered in oil? Do you know why I have oil on my face? Why I'm dressed in this clothes? So that you don't have to. So that, thank you. So that you don't have to. So that you can be like them. So you can shop in these stores, live in these high-rises if you want. And so I took that with me. I was fortunate enough, I may not have always had everything that I wanted in life, but I certainly had everything that I needed. And oftentimes, those lessons of hard work and perseverance, that's more than what you'll ever need. And so I took that with me, and fortunately, I excelled at almost everything I did. In relationships, I always had plenty of friends, and those that didn't want to be my friends, I never really understood why. But I had friends, and I always did good at school. Well, because young people, you don't know this, but back then, if you didn't do good in school, your mom or dad beat you up when you got home. So you just did good in school because you were afraid to not do good. So I did good in school. Not sure if it was by choice or because I was bright, but either way, I did good in school. But the one thing that I did really, really well was baseball. I loved baseball. Baseball was life. I was a big left-handed Cuban guy. Tony Perez, Cincinnati Reds, that was going to be me. And most people don't know this, but I actually got recruited by the St. Louis Cardinals right out of high school. And so that was the proudest day of my life. You can imagine coming home with a business card from the scout, Theo, Abuelo, mira, look, I got this, I'm trying out. So I did the tryouts, I made the team, the coach calls me, and the whole family's around, we're listening, because the phone was attached to the wall at this time. So that's another thing you guys don't know. So we're sitting around and we're listening to the phone call, and the coach tells me, this is funny because little did I know that baseball was going to teach me one of the biggest lessons in my life. The coach calls me, he says, good news, bad news. Well, good news, please. He says, good news is you made the team. Good news is you made the team. You are going to be affiliated with the St. Louis Cardinals. The bad news is this. You're not going to see the field. You're not going to get a uniform. You're not going to pitch. You're going to be fourth string first base. And you're not going to go on away games. I could close my eyes and still feel that today. To know that I was going to be part of the team, but an afterthought of the team. And so I learned a valuable lesson that day that no matter that it's always good to have a plan B. Because I was able to tell the coach that day with confidence, you know what, coach, thank you, but no thanks. It's time for me to go to college. I had an acceptance letter to the University of Central Florida. And so I went to the University of Central Florida. I got my undergraduate degree. And I'll fast forward through this part. I had a wonderful career in banking, which you heard. It's been very rewarding. And then ultimately, I think 7 years ago, I got the company paid for me to get my master's in business administration over at USF. And young people, if I'll be staying afterwards, and I'm happy to share my contact information with you. A lot of times I'm asked, how did you decide this program or that program, and how did you get into this college or that? What's the strategy behind it? And I'm certainly happy to talk about that, but because there is a strategy, there's always a better way of doing things. So I applaud you for asking those questions, but for the sake of time, I can't get all into it right now. So I'm going to stop there, and as I said when I first got here, I wanted to make sure that I leave you with a couple of takeaways or things that, again, have had a big impact on my life. And the first one is this, and these are truths that I believe spread throughout all ages for our young people and our adults in the room as well. And the first is this, is that sometimes the answer is no. And that's something that as human beings we have a hard time digesting. that sometimes the answer is no. That day when I talked to the coach on the phone, I was like, Coach, pero por favor. No. Coach, but maybe. No. Coach, but no. I had never been told no so many times in one conversation. That day when my grandfather went out to the farm, he tried to talk to the men. My mother says that he ended up being pushed against a tractor, and they took one of the rifles and actually put it to the back of his head. I know that's deep, but to draw the picture so you can see, sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes young people, you're going to want to be friends with somebody who doesn't want to be friends with you. The answer is no. Sometimes you're going to be in a relationship with someone that doesn't want to be. The answer is no. But it's up to you to say, okay, so what's next? And continue to put one foot in front of the other. Because I promise you that if you do that, you're going to live a life full. I have people in my life who've gone through things that you would say from the outside looking in, I don't see them ever being happy. But I can tell you today, these people put one foot in front of the other. They put one foot in front of the other and they continue to move forward. And if they could come up on this stage right now, they would tell you, listen to what he's telling you because it's true. Because these people are living fulfilled lives with purpose, and they're making a difference. The second thing is this, is that sometimes the answer is yes. I would submit to you this, that if you're doing the right things in life, you're following the rules, that most of the time, more times than not, you're going to hear yes. So what are the right things to do? I can tell you what I do. This is an essay contest, so I should probably tie in some. I journal every day. Every day I wake up, and my journal outline is an acronym that I call Senior New, SRNEW. The S is for spirituality, the R is for relationships, the N is for nutrition, the E is for exercise, and the W is for work. And so every day I journal. I begin my day in prayer with my Creator, who I call Jesus Christ. And I pray and I thank God every day for all the blessings that He's given me. And then I write about my relationships. How did I reach out to my mother-in-law? Have I said hi to my father-in-law? Have I reached out to my sister? How am I building my relationships with my teachers, my coaches, the young people? The N is for nutrition. I said, it's not only what you're feeding your mouth, because understand this, you only get out of this body what you put into it. So if you're feeding yourself with garbage, your body's not going to respond the way it was meant to. So it's not only what you're eating, but what you're feeding your brain. What are you spending your time on social media looking at? What are you reading? Exercise is important. I don't have to tell any of you that. And what I found is that when I focus on all those things in that order, that last piece, that W, work, comes effortlessly. And the times in my life where I've been most disarrayed, where life seems a little chaotic, sometimes that W has found its way to the top. And I'm working like crazy, and nothing seems to be working right for me. The wife is upset. If mama's not happy, nobody's happy. And life just seems like a mess. But I'm able to just stop and just go back to my Senior New. Okay, let's focus. Let's rebalance. And I go back to my journal. Pages and pages and pages and pages of journal entries. The last third piece, we said sometimes the answers are no. Most of the time I believe they're going to be yes. And the last piece is this, is that ultimately, whether it's yes or no, it doesn't matter. Well, Anthony, how can it not matter? Well, because here's what I submit to you. You can't control the yeses and the nos. But what you can control is your response. Your response to those circumstances. And it's in those responses that you're going to build character. Character is what we're looking for. Leaders today, across our country, across our globe, will tell you we're looking for individuals, young people with character. People that it doesn't matter whether the answer is yes or no, they're going to stay positive. They're going to continue to promote others. They're going to continue to put one foot in front of the other. If it's yes, they're going to appreciate the opportunity. They're going to have humility and humbleness and not boast about it. They're going to treat the janitor like the CEO. That's character. And so I'm going to finish with this. You know, one of the questions that we're asked most often, I'm asked two questions the most often when I sit down with young people, and the two questions are, Anthony, what's the secret to success? What's the secret to success, and does luck have anything to do with it? They're two great questions. And ironically enough, I've heard other speakers repeat this. So obviously they're very popular questions that I'd like to answer for you. So the first, is there a secret to success? I would submit to you, if you understand that sometimes the answer is no, and you continue to move forward, that sometimes the answer is yes, and you embrace those opportunities. And the third, whether it's yes or no, you continue to stay positive and build your character. That sounds like a pretty good secret to success to me. Would you agree? I see heads nodding yes all over the room. The second is this: does luck have anything to do with it? And I'll leave you with this thought, that yes, luck has everything to do with it. Because luck placed you in this beautiful country that we call the United States of America. Luck placed my family here in the United States of America, where dreams are endless, your resources are bountiful. There's nothing you can't do in the United States of America. Young people, hear this. You are surrounded, not only in this room, but on your campuses, in your classrooms, by people who care about you, who want to see you be successful. I don't care what they say about this generation. The people in this room will tell you this generation of students is the greatest generation this country has ever seen. They are committed. They are the smartest. They are the ones that are going to shape and change our future. That's why we're here to celebrate you today. So young people, hold on to that. Know that anything you need, you are surrounded. And you have resources available to you to make your dreams come true. Thank you for having me as your speaker. And I think that's it.